You are now watching the Amazing Mets PreGame Show with your hosts, Rob and CP.
Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets!
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the Amazing Mets PreGame Show on both of the channels. And the man to my left is back from his world tour, and we're gonna get right into it very quickly with the man of the hour, who is back and better than ever. Look at the tan, guys. Look at the tan. Love it. Chris, how are you doing, buddy? Long time no see.
I was catching those rays down in Florida. Apologies that I've been sort of inactive. It's been trip after trip. I have a couple more lined up. Still been watching my Mets baseball, but it's great to be back on the screen with you, Rob. I was having some FOMO. I was missing out on all of the great content during these Mets games. And we got an ever so huge homestand coming up to talk about. And it starts here tonight versus the Washington Nationals. I can't wait.
Yep, absolutely. We got a 6-game homestand to end up the first half into the All-Star break, and they brought it up in the chat. This is a huge homestand against two teams the Mets need to beat, right? I was saying this on the last post game, 4-2 a minimum, in my opinion. I think that's what they need right here. 500 is not exactly what we need right now. We would end the first half one game under 500. You go 4-2, you're a game over 500 to end the first half. And look, yesterday sucked, right? It just happened so quickly that, like, you were watching a game, it was a close game, Nimmo 2-run bomb, and then all of a sudden, boom, like everything just fell apart, and it sucked. And with the Christian Scott getting pulled, even though I know a lot of people were upset about that, but it was talked about numerous times in multiple aspects of the pre-games, post-games on SNY. It wasn't even just me or anybody else that was doing content for the Met with the Mets. So I knew it was going to happen. I didn't know it was going to be 75 pitches, but there was going to be a limit, regardless of the situation. And Gary Cohen brought it up numerous times on the SNY broadcast that Christian Scott is coming out of this game, whatever the pitch count is, and I thought it was going to be under 80. I wasn't sure what it was, but it was clearly leading towards whatever situation they were going to get put in. They were taking out Christian Scott in whatever pitch limit they had, and we found out after the game it was around 75, 78 pitches, around that, because they didn't like that he went 90 plus his first start back. And I know you're a big advocate for Christian Scott, and I talked about it. I don't know if you heard or not, but I talked about it, that this is what's going to happen, regardless of the talent of this kid, or even Jose Buto for this matter. If we're gonna want these two guys in this rotation, we're going to have to deal with this. And nobody wants Tyler McGill back in the rotation. We all understand that, but you're gonna get quality innings, or better than quality innings most of the time, from Christian Scott, but you're going to get a limited number of those innings. And I want to get your opinion, because I'm not too fond of it, knowing that we're going to get good, over, probably above average quality innings from Christian Scott, but we're only going to get 5 2/3, maybe 6. But it's all about the pitch count, Chris. And that's the tough part for me, is that, and we were talking about it on the post game yesterday, a lot of people in the chat, that why don't they just put him in the bullpen if you're going to limit his innings, limit his pitch count, and you can use him and Buto in the bullpen and use their talents, use their arms in the bullpen that is needed over the next couple of weeks before the deadline. What is your take on that?
First of all, my first reaction to that, because I haven't gotten a chance to actually talk about it, I haven't liked the way that Christian Scott's been utilized or managed this whole entire season. And not like, I understand the injury prevention things side of it, but for me, it's like, we don't have the proper transparency as fans to know what the plan was in the beginning.
Yeah.
Sort of set our expectations. So my expectation was that this was full throttle, compete, get to the playoffs, etc. But then you're hard capping his pitch count, and you see what transpires there afterward. Now, like I said, initially I was pissed off. I was upset. We're trying to win a ball game. We're in a tie ball game. you got to get that final out in the inning. I understand. They had a plan and they stuck to it. Can I fault the organization for that? No, even though I really want to, but I can't. I can't as a fan.
Yeah.
But the decision to put in Orzi, I believe is how you say it, before Hauser, that's kind of where it's like, you need to end that inning. One of their best hitters is coming up. Why are we putting that kid in that kind of position? Regardless, it doesn't matter. Bygones are bygones. That's kind of like where I was going at it from. But everybody on my channel, your channel, all of our streams that come here to watch us, everyone knows that how I feel about Christian Scott, right? We all know that. But the Mets are going to really have a hard time figuring out how to remain in this playoff sort of race without the services of Christian Scott in your rotation. And by the way, as I'm talking, if I am lagging, Rob or anybody else in the chat, please let me
You're
know.
good right now.
Over to my phone. I'm all good. Okay, just making sure. First day back. I don't need any technical difficulties. But yeah, so you have Jose Buto too. He's gonna have to move over to the rotation at some point as well if you're gonna have this sort of limitation with Scott. I agree with you. I was never really a proponent of Christian Scott being in the bullpen, but I didn't know at that point, right, with the lack of quote unquote transparency, that this is how they were going to utilize Christian Scott. So I do think that in a shorter spurt, maybe 3 or 4 innings out of the pen, maybe an Adrian Hauser 2.0 out of the pen. And we'll see what happens with the trend of Adrian Hauser as we keep seeing him coming out of the bullpen. I think that that could be a realistic option. But would I like that? No. Now, like I said, are you going to hard cap his quote unquote pitch count? They had a realistic expectation of about 75. He was at 77 pitches when he got that second out. Would anyone have batted an eye if they made him go maybe 80 to 82? Now, I get that you have a plan set in place before the game, but this is going to be a very tricky and difficult road to go down, especially not that anybody cares, right? At the top level of the organization, what the fans think. They're trying to protect one of the better pitchers in this organization prospect wise for longevity. I can always appreciate that, but it's a very tough situation when you're also trying to sell the fans in the middle of a wild card race that you are truly going to make a push at the wild card. Now, it can be done. You can do 2 things at one time, but you're just making your job that much harder. Like I said, if I have to prioritize Christian Scott's health over winning a couple of extra games, maybe I do that, because I do think with the deadline coming up and the options that you have, bringing Jose Buto back in the rotation, that both can be done. But man, if a situation like last time around in Pittsburgh in Game 3 arises again where the Mets blow a lead like that because they pull Christian Scott or anybody else in this rotation that's rolling well and doing well in that game, it's gonna be fireworks all over social media, all over YouTube. We've already seen that in one time out. So it's tough, Rob. I wish I had an immediate answer, but this is the beauty of baseball. And this is the beauty of the 2024 New York Mets and the situation that David Stearns has to work with. I don't want to say they put themselves into this position by the type of offseason that they had, but they more or less did. They knew that this was going to be the result if they were in the wild card race in July. So now they're here. The team put themselves back in the race, and David Stearns has a lot of answers to figure out because there's still a lot of holes on this team from the bullpen perspective, and it's just a trick of the trade right now. That's it.
Yeah, and you know what? Listen, we could talk about the offseason moves, and listen, you can't plan for Drew Smith and Raley going down with season-ending injuries. You can't plan for that. And not only that, Sean Reed Foley and the suspension of Diaz all around the same time is a huge blow. And I don't care who you are. I don't care what GM, if you're the best GM in baseball or not. There's only so much you can do at that moment, and it's mostly internally, right? Nobody's trading anybody at this point. Maybe you'll start hearing a lot of rumors over the next week or so when the All-Star game hits. But other than that, you have to go internal. You have to throw starters in the bullpen, right? The Mets have tried to do that with Buto and Hauser. There's a pretty good chance McGill might be another one that might roll into this bullpen. But, to go back with about the Orzi situation, that was another thing they talked about in the broadcast where they kind of had a set plan of who was going to come in the game because they were very limited bullpen wise in that game yesterday. It was Orzi, it was Hauser, it was Ottavino. Those are the three guys that were available. And there might have been one guy in an emergency situation if it went deeper into a ball game. But it was they wanted, and the funny thing was that they didn't really have a lefty, Diekman. I don't think anybody wanted Diekman in that situation with the best three hitters in the lineup for the Pirates. Diekman wasn't going to do it, so everybody's like, "Oh, why don't you throw in a lefty?" Now everybody wanted Diekman in because it didn't work out with Orzi. No, Diekman would have probably done even worse. But you know what? Everybody, because with the Orzi thing, he didn't really give up anything. Like it wasn't. O'Neill Cruz was the only hard hit ball. Like if Tellez hit that ball a little bit harder on the ground, we wouldn't be talking about. I mean, we could have still been talking about a loss, but we would have still probably had a tie game there instead of a game that got out of hand right after that base hit. It was a perfectly placed bunt, basically a swinging bunt that Vientos couldn't get in time until Tellez beat out. Orzi is good against left-handers, and instead of Diekman, Mendoza went to Orzi. And I know you're talking about they should have went to Hauser at that point, or we all agreed, right? Everybody in the chat in the post game said, why not just go 83 pitches, 84 pitches with Scott? What is the difference between 75 and 84? Well, we see it differently. They don't see it like that. They think that 10 extra pitches could blow out his arm. Like, I don't know why they think that, but that's what they think. And, he did have a scare last year with Tommy John, with the elbow issue. He had elbow flare-up. So I understand them being overly concerned, but you can't, preach winning and being competitive and being a playoff race and being a playoff team and going through this run and tell me about pitch counts. Look, we're not the Marlins. We're not the Pirates, right? And yes, we are the Mets. I understand that. But we can't preach playoffs and then talk about pitch counts when you're trying to win ball games and every game is going to matter, especially how close this National League wildcard is. And that's the issue I have. That's why I wouldn't even fuck around. Like maybe they are waiting until the deadline, to the All-Star break, and they'll figure things out that way, or they're just gonna roll with Scott with 5 2/3 innings. When he hits 75, 80 pitches, that's it. And you're gonna have to deal with it until the deadline, until they get bullpen help, and hopefully that works out. Or they get a starter, or wait until Kodai Senga comes back after the All-Star break, and then Christian Scott goes into the bullpen, because I think that's what they're waiting for. Christian Scott's going to be in this rotation, getting you 5 2/3, and pray for the best until Kodai Senga comes back, probably after the All-Star break, because he's looking like he's going to be back right after the All-Star break, the way he's trending in his progression. So that's what I'm thinking. But again, you agree, everybody agrees, like you can't preach playoffs or playoff race or being a playoff team and have this issue, right? The bullpen blew it, we know, right? Even if Scott would have got out of that sixth inning and pitched it, 7, 8, and 9 were still ready to go. So it still would have blew up on our faces anyway, probably, because Hauser had nothing at all. Like, I'm more mad at the Hauser pitch selection and just blow up than Orzi, right? Orzi, what do you expect, right? They're trying anybody possible to find lightning in a bottle. Orzi didn't get hit hard. He just had bad luck. That happens. But Adrian Hauser let the floodgates open. Like, he could have limited the damage, and this still could have been a ball game. The Mets could have still tried to come back. Hauser just completely blew up. That's even worse. Maybe it was a situation you put him in, but you're supposed to, have confidence in your veteran when it comes to that, to limit the damage. He didn't do that. And it just spiraled out of control from there. So I don't know, Chris.
It's just questionable for me because I haven't been on stream or made a video ever since that national series, and I was in attendance for 3 out of 4 of those games, and I was in attendance to watch Christian Scott pitch. And it's just kind of head scratching to me, right? Everyone, like, I had no problem leaving Christian Scott in as long as they did in the Washington series, and we saw how that ended up. So I don't know if that played into their decision, but the bottom line is, like you just said, the bottom line that everyone needs to realize, and that I'm kind of letting go what happened in Pittsburgh, and I'm just starting to realize that the Mets are trying to do two things at one time
Yeah.
until this deadline hits. It's very blatant, it's very obvious, and we see it by the decision making. We don't even need any words to know exactly what they're trying to accomplish. They're trying to accomplish longevity with their young guys, especially Christian Scott, but they're also trying to win. Now, that's a very hard thing to do, and we saw it in this last Christian Scott start because that ended up poorly. So I think they're really just trying to weather the storm right now. I think that's really what it's all about. And that means pulling up a guy like Orzi, and like you said, maybe finding lightning in a bottle. And if it doesn't work, trying someone else. I don't know. It's a very hard thing to do. Let's be honest here.
So, Chris, what we're talking about bullpen. The Mets just made a trade. They acquired Phil Maton from the Rays for cash for a player to be named. So,
I like
that,
that.
that was an arm that I think we talked about in
Yep.
the offseason, and they got him now. So, look, Stearns is trying, right? He got gauged the other day for cash considerations. He's given up either cash or a player to be named later to the Rays for full maintenance. So there you go. So that's an arm that can get slotted right into the bullpen right away. A major league bullpen arm. And I'm going to check his numbers really quick, Chris. If you want to rant a little bit more, let me just check his numbers real quick.
Yeah, the numbers aren't really good from what I understand with the Rays this season. This was a name that I definitely talked about in the relief sort of bullpen arm videos that I did in the offseason. This is a guy that definitely is a proven vet. He's got electric stuff. It really hasn't turned out in Tampa, but I guess the Mets I'm not really sure if you can pull up what the compensation is. I'm not sure I'm actually actively going into Twitter X myself right now for cash or a player to be named later. Okay, so they're buying low on Maton right now, which is good. I really do think that any sort of trade that comes through right now is something that you're going to buy low on. So the Mets are
Yeah.
not going to give up anything specific, or I guess how do I say this? In large, they're not going to give up any large returns, and this is sort of like a desperation type move. Like, let's be honest, this is a desperation type move.
Yeah.
They know they
Absolutely.
need relievers, and they know they can buy low right now on July 9th instead of waiting later on, maybe within the next week or week and a half. So listen, Maton's a guy, I believe he had success in Houston, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
A guy that a lot of Mets content creators talked about this past offseason. You buy low on him. Nothing is going back to Tampa that's considerable, right? And that's pretty much it. We'll see what he's able to do for the Mets. And it's like you get another guy in here. Maybe they option Orzi. Like, this is just plug and play. We literally just went through this whole entire spiel 2 minutes ago before this trade news just dropped. It's literally plug and play until the deadline, until they either decide concretely what they're doing with the Christian Scott or Jose Buto or the guys in the minor leagues, or if they're going to go out there and trade for the Angels reliever, or if they're going to go trade for any other reliever, maybe on the Nationals that can help. Right? Not that I'm thinking that the Nationals are going to give us a Kyle Finnegan or Hunter Harvey, but we can only hope, right? So we'll see. This is a good tip of the iceberg type move. You see the Mets repeating what they did in 2023 on the reverse side of things. Instead of selling off early like they did Eduardo Escobar last season, they're kind of buying early. Is that an indicator of what they're going to do here in the next couple of weeks? Probably. Like I said, what did I just say right before you said that? Right before this trade broke? They're trying to stay afloat until the deadline where they can make more concrete decisions. There's no harm, no foul with this type of move, in my opinion.
Yeah, and look, these are the only moves you can make at the moment right now. At least moves with a possible capable on. You hope that the change of scenery, because he does have electric stuff, right? He has a 4.58 ERA, so it's not great, but you hope the change of scenery, going into a playoff race now. I mean, I know that's funny to say, as you know, the fourth team that's fighting for a fourth or 15 fighting for a wild card spot, but they are. Right? He gets thrown into a playoff race where he really isn't with the Rays. You just hope change of scenery. He has electric stuff, right? Look, it can't get worse than it already is, right? You just hope you catch lightning in a bottle here. That's what David Stern's trying to do. They're trying to stay afloat, like you said, Chris, and they did DFA Lucchesi to make room for Maton. So that was probably inevitable because a lot of people were bringing up Lucchesi yesterday on the post game. Well, Lucchesi fell out of favor with the Mets. I don't know if it was attitude, because we talked about this a lot before spring. We thought he could make the team either in the bullpen or in a rotation, and he just never. I don't know if it was confidence or it was just attitude or something was going on between the Mets and Lucchesi. Something wasn't adding up because he's not a terrible pitcher. Like, we could have used him in either the rotation or the bullpen, and they never wanted to bring him up. Had to be something going on between both parties. And I don't think Lucchesi was happy with his usage at all and getting stuck in the minor leagues. And his attitude just took a big fall to the Mets. I don't know. I don't know what that is, but they had to make room on the roster on the 40-man. Lucchesi is the fall guy. And now Maton, which he'll probably be here tomorrow with the team, most likely. And he'll probably replace Orzi on the 26-man. So that's the only thing I can think of when it comes to Lucchesi.
Couple things with Maton is he's more of a soft tossing righty, but the thing is, if you look at his Savant page with the advanced analytics of it all, he induces weak contact. He's a ground ball pitcher, so you just hope that he's able to pitch to contact and get you those outs. And right now, the Mets are struggling to find outs. Like, let's be real here. They're struggling to find outs, and this is a type of guy that will put in the strike zone. The numbers aren't pretty right now. Over a 4.5 ERA, the whip's at 1.33. It's not pretty, let's be honest, right? But if you can just get him to pitch to contact and get you some bulk outs instead of relying on an Orzi or relying on a Diekman, I know it's a little bit of a different story because Diekman's a lefty, but really, who cares about the matchups of it all at this point? Because if you can't get outs, it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
Yeah, that's really all it is. There's nothing really more to it. That's it.
Mm-hmm. So Junior just brought up his last 11 appearances, 12 innings, 6 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, 11 strikeouts, 0.75 ERA. There you go. So he was pitching better over his last 11 outings, which is probably over a month, right? You would think about a month or so, 11 appearances, probably maybe a half a month, who knows? But that's good stats. And listen, you bought low on a guy that has been pitching better over the last handful of starts or dozen appearances. So yeah, I think we can really hope that he just. I want to say, look, he doesn't have to be great. He just has to be better than what we dealt with over the last couple of since basically a month and a half. Even during this hot streak, it's been a problem with the bullpen, right? How they won all these games and one of the hottest teams in baseball without Diaz and without their big names in the bullpen is amazing to me. I know they won a lot of those games with the offense, Chris, but you know what? Kudos to them because they could have fell apart easily. And we talked about that a lot. 11 games under 500 with massive injuries in your bullpen and suspension all at the same time, basically. Like, we got to give them credit, but there's a lot of work to be done, right? They're going to play game 90 of the season, right? We can do the math. Everybody knows how many games left there are, right? Once you get to the 60th win or loss, that's when those games are really going to start mattering even more, even though they all matter. But everybody loses 60 and wins 60, right? That's been kind of like the status quo for most baseball teams. The other 42 is where you make or break your season. So, look, it starts with these last 6 games at home before the All-Star break. And listen, we should have took 3 out of 4 against Washington. We had a 5-0 lead in Game 3, and they blew it. And it just kind of went out of control in the next game as well. We could have had a 5-3 road trip, maybe even a 6-2 road trip. And we're talking about a team a couple of games over 500 who's trying to finish up really strong. Now they're trying to, I wouldn't say like keep their head above water, but it kind of is at this point because you can't lose a series against the Nationals and the Rockies at home and then expect anybody to have confidence in you going after the All-Star break. Chris, you brought this up right before July. We have the easiest schedule in baseball in July, right? I think we're either 1 or 2, but you brought this up. This needs to be 3, 4, 5 games over a 500 month. It can't be under 500 at all. They need to be at least 500 or better to end this month, or it's going to be a very big disappointment. Not a July swoon, but it would be a disappointing July, Chris. And it starts today with Jose Quintana on the mound, who's pitched a lot better.
That's it. I mean, that's really it. I mean, I did say it. I said it back, 2 weeks ago, before July even hit, that this is this part of the schedule that you need to take advantage of. And the Nationals and the Rockies coming to town, I'm not going to sort of focus on the Rockies right now, right? Because we have some breaking news here, and we have a game to play tonight against the pitcher and Jake Irvin that absolutely carved the Mets up last go around in DC for 8 innings and 8 strikeouts. But you know what? I agree. I think someone said in the chat here, no giving up on this year. I believe it was Frank. And this type of move for Maton just shows you that they're not giving up, right? Like this guy, Maton, just signed a deal for 1 year, $6.5 million with the Rays going into the season. I'm very curious to see how much of that $6.5 million the Mets end up eating, especially when you get into the reports at the beginning of the season, like Andy Martino was saying about a budget of 10 to 15 million dollars left, which it just seems like, I don't know. I don't want to just call out his credibility or anything, but it just seems like, hey, like David Stearns and Steve Koner, like that's not true. So we'll see how much they end up eating of this. But yeah, this is to stay afloat. We'll see what happens. They're going to get more pieces. They're going to get more pieces. There's no way they spent this entire season selling us on a playoff spot for us to get 2.5 back of the wild card, playing relatively decent ball over the past month and a half, and just to not do anything and stay pat. Now, like I said, they probably might sell a couple pieces off too in return, right? Because the salaries, it does have to be played with just a little bit, but they will get the proper pieces in here. Now, as it pertains to the schedule, as it pertains to this homestand, you have to give me at least 4. You know what? I might up that and just say I need 5 or 6. There's no reason we should be losing to the Nationals or the Rockies, but I'm going to give the Nationals the benefit of the doubt. I'm just going to give them the benefit of the doubt. They can take 1. I was very disappointed that they split in Washington because that 5-0 game had a W written all over it. And the way that ended left a very sour taste in my mouth when I was in the stands. It was pitiful. It was pitiful being there. And every Nats fan cheering around me, flexing their 2019 World Series ring for whatever that matters to them anymore. But nonetheless, like I said, this is a very good opportunity. You come away with 4, 5, maybe even 6 wins here. You finally get a couple of games over 500. We all want to get solidly over 500. We saw them get a game over, and then they kind of went right back to it. This is something where they need to take advantage of this, and I cannot wait to see if they are up to the task in front of the home crowd. They weathered the storm. I will say, 4-4 road trip. You take it, given the circumstances in the bullpen. But now, when you go back home for 6, it's time for blood. I'm sorry. It is. You got to take care of business, and you got to handle business against inferior opponents. I'm sorry. The Rockies, the Nationals, and even the Marlins after that are inferior opponents. Good teams beat inferior opponents. The Phillies have done it all season long, and they have a comfortable lead in the NL East. It's time for the Mets to do so. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. And it starts tonight. The runs have been kind of scattered, right, on that road trip. Couple of games, you get a couple of run production. 2 games, you get 9 runs. And it kind of evens out to about just over 4 runs. Jump on Jake Irvin early and often. You've seen him one time around for 8 innings. Some guys have had 2 at-bats. Some have had 3 against him already. You know what he's got. Let's do it. That's it.
Yeah, and the Mets are 4-1 against pitchers they seen a second time. So that might be a good sign. They got to have a better plan. I mean, Jake Irvin was just pounding the zone, and they weren't swinging at his fastball. I don't know if it was hard to see or what coming out of his hand, but they got to swing at his fastball. He was just pumping strikes, first, second pitches, and they were just looking at him, and they were swinging at his breaking stuff out of the zone, and it ended up costing the Mets. So you know what, Chris, you have that mentality. Jump on that first pitch, maybe even that second pitch. Get it early in the count. Don't let him get ahead, because that's when he starts to use that off-speed breaking stuff, and you're in trouble. And yeah, and listen, this team needs to break out offensively at home. We talked about this all season. Look, they've been better at home over the month of June, run-wise, but they need to just really get over that home, scoring runs at home. They need the 6 games right here. They need to just beat the shit out of these teams right now, right? They're better than the Nationals. They're definitely better than the Rockies, right? Put the Nationals out of their misery, right? The Nationals are probably holding on for dear life right now to think that they can come back into the race here. We want them out of the race by the time we finish with them. Because that means the Mets could get one of those, the Harveys and the Finnegans. Not saying they will, but it is an option, right? I was talking about this. There's a pretty good chance, and that's why I keep on saying that. People are like, oh, the Mets, I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs or not like that. It's not even about making the playoffs at this point. It's about where you need to be at the deadline and what teams you're going to be fighting it out for through the rest of the summer and the fall months in September as well. Because I already said this, there could be 6 or 7 teams that might be sellers at the deadline, and you only have to worry about maybe 4 teams in total, including yourself, that are going to be fighting for that wild card spot. Because I don't think, like, other than the Giants and the Diamondbacks, I don't think any other team under the Mets and the Giants are really going to be buyers here. I think they're going to be sellers. I think it's from Pittsburgh all the way down. The rest of those teams are probably going to be either staying pat or becoming sellers. And that's a win for the Mets because you don't have to worry about those teams who are going to be sellers because they're giving up on the season. And now you only got to worry about a couple of teams instead of 8, 9 teams. You might have to worry about only 4. So that's why it's important this 6-game stretch to go 4-2 minimum 4-2. Anything less than that, I'm not going to be happy with at all because we're going to end the first half a game under 500, and that's going to piss me off because we're better than these teams. And you, at some point, you got to show that you got to make a run here, right? I'm not saying go 6-0. I mean, that'd be great. If they do that, well, guess what? You're 5 games over 500, and you're damn sure probably will be in a playoff spot to win the first half. And then Met fans will really get excited. But that's what they need. They need to be at least 2 games over 500, in my opinion, and in the road trip. And if it's 4-2, there'll be a game over. If I'm not mistaken, 5-1, there'll be 2. 6-0, there'll be 3 games over 500. Oh, well, sorry, 5 games over 500. I can't even do math anymore. But there'll be a couple of games over 500, and that will get the Met fans excited because that 2-game over 500 mark, we can't get over. We can't. We get there, and then boom, right back down. Get over that, and fans are going to start getting excited again, especially if Maton comes into this bullpen and not makes it tremendously better, but kind of calms the waters a little bit and pushes everybody down. Maton can easily be a 6-7 inning guy. Definitely can. And then you don't have to worry about using Nunez for 2 innings or anybody who actually has a pulse that you would have confidence in for 2 innings, right? Because it's killing this team using Nunez for 2 or Buto for 2, and you lose them for 2 or 3 days. Like, you can't have that, especially with a bullpen that is basically useless beyond those guys, other than Diaz. After that, like, that's the problem with what Mendoza is dealing with right now and what Met fans have to watch, right? It's great in game 2 of the Pirates series game 3, when you're using Nunez and you're using Garrett multiple times, and now you don't have those guys for the ending of the series. And it's great. You got that win, but you lose them for a couple of games. And that's where the Mets are starting to have problems. They win those games with Garrett, Buto, and Nunez. But when they're not pitching, at least at the same time, because you need them in that game, or at least back-to-back games, that next game that you don't have any of them is kind of, you kind of flipping a coin at that point. And that's why this is hurting. At least Maton, he can go more often than not because he's done it for his entire career. I can see him going 2, maybe even 3 days in a row. And then you can actually save Nunez or save Garrett or Buto. And that's going to make your bullpen better by having them available more often than not.
Yeah, he's not a needle mover, as they say. He's a guy to come in here and help you weather the storm. Exactly what you said, Rob. 100%. That's the vision that I have. They'll have to make a decision on who they send down or move to the rotation, etc. This roster is going to be a revolving door probably until maybe mid-August. I want to say this is going to be a revolving door before we get some consistency. So it just is what it is. I know a lot of people like consistency. I love consistency. I'm always preaching it. But with the way the Mets are set up right now, injuries, I mean, everything take into consideration. So many moving parts, and that's just what this organization has to deal with right now. But as it pertains to the offense, before we get out of here, how about my guy Brandon Nimmo swinging 3-0 on a game-tying bomb? Nobody wants anybody to swing 3-0. I hear it all the time, but Brandon Nimmo says, F you, I'm going to do it, and hits a bomb out there to right center field to tie the game up. But also, one thing that we didn't talk about as it pertains to this lineup, a lot of people aren't happy. A lot of people aren't happy with the guy that's hitting sixth right now. Another lefty in the lineup that has an option to his name, and his name is DJ Stewart. So I'm not sure if you have any thoughts and opinions about that. I know Trace Thompson, we've been talking about him. He's not in the organization anymore. He's been released as of 4 days ago. You got the Ben Gambles of the world that's not moving the needle as well on the bench. So it's like, I don't know what the Mets do. A lot of people are pretty tired of DJ Stewart. And I saw, I believe, Danny Abriano, I believe his name is. I think he covers the Mets for SNY. Basically stated since May 25th, DJ Stewart is hitting 096.
Hey.
096 with numerous strikeouts. It's just not cutting it. And I really do think the Mets can do better. But like I said, as it pertains to the pitching, and the same thing also pertains to the offense with the bench pieces, etc., they're just trying to weather the storm. I don't think DJ Stewart's going to be here for the long haul of 2024. I will say, and I would like to advise Mets fans to practice patience, even though I know it's hard to watch DJ Stewart at bats right now. I don't know. But anyways, he's starting tonight. So, of course, me bringing this up, he's going to go hit a bomb today.
Yeah, hey, listen, he was the only one I got to hit off for Irvin the last time they faced him. So I guess that might be the reason why he's in the lineup. But I think Stewart, this is his last 6 games to prove that he should be on this roster. I don't think after the All-Star break he'll be here, in my opinion. He has the option. You have that just in case of an injury or two. You have him in the minors just in case. No need for him to be up here. There's got to be somebody else that you can give an opportunity to. And I just wanted to bring up another tweet by Pat Ragazzo. Stern says Mets have been talking to the Rays and a number of teams about bullpen help for weeks now. They targeted Maton in the offseason, as we talked about. He has a 1.08 ERA in 8 in the third innings. Stearns is confident the adjustments Maton has made recently can help the Mets bullpen. So we know that Stearns
and they're taking on the remainder of his salary.
Correct. So all that $10 to $15 million budget is kind of out the window with the JD Martinez signing and a couple of more signings they made after that, or at least adding on some payroll or paying some a couple of cash considerations. Plus this, it's adding up to the budget. If what the hell is his name? If Martino's right about the budget, then the Mets are making no more moves because they can't add payroll if that's the case anymore because they're already on that limit. But I digress with that, but you see Stearns is working here, right? He pinpointed the guy he targeted in the offseason. So that you see how he's working here. And it's hard to kill Stearns for this bullpen because he had guys that were already from a previous regime that were guys that were going to be used a lot and that we saw, and that was going to be a part of this bullpen. Wasn't a lot of his guys, the Jorge Lopez of the world, the Yohan Ramirez of this world. Yeah, we get that. Deepin, that's one of them that hasn't been good, but he retained a lot of guys. This is not really his bullpen. He was trying to add bits and pieces around it. Maton was a guy that he was trying to get in the offseason, couldn't get, and now we got him now. So we always pinpointed him. He liked him. And he said that there's different adjustments that he made, and he's pitched well since his adjustments. Listen, it can only get better from here. How can it get much worse? They don't pitch well without the guys that we already mentioned. And to finish it up, Chris, about this lineup in DJ Stewart, yeah, he has a couple of games left, in my opinion, and he's probably done. He'll be back in the minors after the All-Star. At least we hope he'll be back. And again, the Marte injury really hurt us. It didn't hurt us offensively, but it hurt us because you're playing backups. Let's be honest. Tyrone Taylor is a backup outfielder. DJ Stewart is the backup to the backup outfielder. You got to throw McNeil in left field and right field multiple times. And just think, everybody was saying, why not put McNeil in right field and play Iglesias? We want McNeil in this lineup over DJ Stewart. That's how bad DJ Stewart has been. When you talk about McNeil needing to be in this lineup to get DJ Stewart out of this lineup, Chris, how about that? That's fun, right? But
Yeah,
listen,
I saw someone on my X account, shout out to Rob, was saying why not just move McNeil to the outfield, let DJ Stewart go and bring up a second baseman in Luis Angel Acuna. And like I said, I really do think that there's going to be a workaround to this roster, both pitching side of things and the offensive side of things, but we're not going to see it, right? They're not going to rush to make that move before this break coming up. But stranger things have happened. I'm on board with this Maton move. Not gonna lie, like I said, just give me outs, just eat up outs, which is what this bullpen struggled to do. And it's a win in my book, no matter what. And like I said, I really do think that, like David Stern just told all of us with those pitching adjustments, if he saw those adjustments being made, then we got to trust the guy. But you know what? At this point, I'm not expecting anything major in terms of the roster shakeups. And DJ Stewart is not it, and I get that Acuna's not ready. So let's pivot to the trade block. I don't know who which bats are going to be available. A lot of people are talking about Jazz Chisholm. I don't think the Mets are getting Jazz Chisholm, but we
no.
can only dream, right? Anyways,
Hey,
regardless, we got a lot of time to talk deadline. We will be talking deadline here soon, and we have our first, I guess, trade deadline season type move already on this stream unexpectedly. So it's a good way to kick things off. That's it.
yeah, and this is kind of one of the bigger trades so far, right? The Mets. This is kind of a decent trade. Like these are the ones you see like a few days before the deadline type of trade. Like, oh look, there's a couple of arms available still. Boom, you get one of those. So the Mets have opened up the hot stove with getting Phil Maton. If you're just tuning in, Phil Maton to the Mets from the Rays, cash considerations or player to be named later. So the Mets are using the dollar signs to entice some teams that want to shed payroll. And he was making what, $6 million, you said, Chris? So the Mets are going to be taking on that contract as well. So we got Jose Quintana on the mound today. Jake Irvin, who he shut down the Mets last time we seen him, but the Mets are 5-1 against teams, against pitchers that they have faced the second time this season. So they obviously adjust the next time they see him. Let's see if they do with Irvin. Got to get to him early, get that bat swinging early in the count. He pounds the strike zone early and then messes with his breaking ball and off-speed pitches. Chris, any final words about today's game? And obviously we'll be here the next couple of days about the pregame, postgame. Let everybody know what's going on with your channel and, of course, today's game.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Good to be back from vacation. Appreciate you all coming through. I did have the poll up. A lot of people seem to be confident in the Mets moving forward, which is good. This homestand can kind of solidify that in everyone's minds, but especially mine. I liked how they weathered the storm. They're battling adversity over the course of 162. We all know there's going to be adversity at hand, but let's see how they deal with it. Love to see this front office, at least like you said, working to sort of shore up the bullpen in uncertain times. We'll see if Maton can get it done. We'll see if his recent numbers sets a trend and that trend can continue with the Mets. Daniel in the chat is pointing out as well, Matt Gage, I believe, came over from the Dodgers while I was on vacation, but the Mets optioned him to AAA as depth. So I don't think he's in the picture right now, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll see. Like I said, revolving door. Think of a revolving door, and that's exactly what the Mets are going to be until about early to mid-August, if I had to guess. So I love it. Let's get a win. I want to see this offense make adjustments off of Jake Irvin. You pointed out some trends the last time around in that 1-0 loss. I believe that was the July 4th, 11 o'clock game, correct? And these two very pitchers, Jose Quintana versus Jake Irvin, on the mound together, or against each other, I should say. And Jose Quintana, let's not forget, he's been doing a tad bit better as well. He provided 7 innings of 1-run ball last game too, against his counterpart. And you know what? Let's just hope the tides turn. It's all about adjustments in this game. It's all about adjustments in this game, and that's what I'm looking out for today. Probably no post game tonight, although we'll be back on the pregame tomorrow to talk about this game and game 2. Probably maybe 1 or 2 post games to finish up this week. I am taking another vacation here, if you can believe it or not. It's the summer months here coming up on Saturday, but I'm always locked in with my Mets, and I appreciate you all being here. Hit that thumbs up. We all appreciate you being here, myself and Rob. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. The world tour continues for Chris right now. And, absolutely, Chris, it's great to have you back. And somebody's bringing up about the round table. It's looking like it's going to be Thursday, most likely, which is they have a day game. So we're probably going to do something Thursday night. So we'll keep you posted on that. Most likely Thursday. So, guys, let's get a W today. Chris, great having you back. Guys, another Mets Amazing Pregame Show in the books. And we got to get that win today, and it starts tonight with Jose Quintana. With that said, let's go Mets. We'll see you tomorrow, guys, and have a great night and enjoy the game. Let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets.
Meet the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really sucking the ball.